Andrew, I was listening to you recently talk about something I do at the position with regards to like balancing, if you're going to pair some tight ends together to have a nice balance. You know, I talk about putting Hunter Henry with like, you know, maybe a young rookie or a guy like Strange that we don't necessarily have that much tape on. How do you approach the position when you're pairing? It sounds like you're doing, you know, like maybe an upside guy with maybe a more stable guy. Maybe talk about that more in depth for our audience.
Yeah, so we do yin and yang tight end is what we call it, where it's like you take a safer player and you take the highest risk, highest reward guy you possibly can. The problem that you run into with just taking two risky players, which is usually a very attractive like proposition, is that the risky guys a lot of times can't be trusted right away. Like even Mark Andrews, his breakout year, hard to just draft him and trust him as your only tight end. Trey McBride in his breakout year was behind Zach Ertz for 7 games. Logan Thomas, when he finished as a tight end 3, he actually was the tight end 26 through 6 weeks, right? Johnny Smith last year, his first 4 games, he had a game in there with 0 catches. He had a game with 1 catch. He had a game with 2 catches. Like, it's just hard. You can't lose too many games early on. So what we do is we try and take a guy who's safe, but also has a little bit of upside that we kind of trust to start right away. And then we just use one bench spot with the highest risk, highest reward guy. And if you wait on tight end and you start your draft with like 8 or 9 running backs and wide receivers, you can afford to use one bench spot on a tight end. So like you said, if you wait and take somebody like it's kind of safe, but maybe boring. In a shallow league, like a 10-team league, you can actually take somebody like Evan Ingram. In the deeper, bigger leagues, I'm looking at like Tucker Kraft or Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's my go. He's like, I know we love him because there are 2 paths to being a top 5 tight end. 90 plus targets or 10 plus touchdowns. Not only did he get 97 targets last year, but we don't really project anyone to have 10 plus touchdowns, but this guy is so good in man-to-man in short areas that, you know, it's not even a bad bet that he could potentially get there that way. So those are the safe guys. And then with the other ones, you guys got to use your imagination going for the most athletic guys that could be top 2 targets on your team. And in my tight end, ultimate tight end guide, which is available in the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide now, I take every player and I give you 3 sections on each player. The good, which is the objective good things about the player. The bad, which is the objective bad things about the player. And then a 3rd section called the advice. And that's my subjective opinion on whether I like them at ADP or not. So when you go through, you read about these guys, good, bad, and make your call. But there's a lot of guys out there that are athletic and they could be a top 2 target on their team and they could make big moves. Mason Taylor, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Chigakonkwo. And if you say to yourself any of those names, you say, oh, ew, gross. Well, you don't have to draft them because I just named 4 guys. I mean, like, find your path to upside and then put that guy on the bench. And then I do a free waiver wire article where I'll be telling you who I'm dropping, who I'm adding, and we'll figure it out that way. It's not a strategy that ends when the draft ends. So that's what we do. It's been a good way to create upside because for 13 straight years now, a tight end has come from outside the top 17 in ADP to finish top 5. It's been Evan Ingram twice. It's been Darren Waller. It's been Robert Tonyan. Last year it was Johnny Smith. Or all the way back to guys like Julian. Like, it's one of the easiest positions to create leverage at.
Which is why this year I think like what I'm really liking is not 0 RB but 0 tight end. You know, like earlier when Kittle was going in the 4th, even in the 5th round in early drafts this offseason, I was definitely hammering him. But we talk about the different ways to balance and the variety that you have, Dan, in these double-digit rounds now at the tight end position really allows you to do that. Do you have anything to add, Dan, with maybe your global approach, your macro approach to the position, or the way Andrew is pairing his tight end duos?
No, I mean, you know, with Andrew, I mean, even though the picture might be fuzzy, the advice is very, very sharp. So, yeah, that's that's exactly the way I go about it. You know, if I'm not grabbing one of those early tight ends, I'm just getting somebody who I can count on for the first few weeks, and then taking my best shot at 1 or 2, depending on, you know, if I'm in FFPC, I'll probably take 2 shots because I can afford 3 roster spots on a tight end in that particular format. So, then I'll be taking like a Theo Johnson or a Jatavian Sanders or, Rondé Gadsden or, pick your favorite guys, and I'm going to move them around a little bit because, right now I don't have a lot of conviction on any of these guys. So if I don't have a lot of conviction, I'm not going to get roped into any particular one. The one I've got the most conviction on, Mason Taylor, he's the guy I'll take the most of as kind of my, my upside shot. But, as Andrew said, you've got the first few weeks of the waiver wire too. Usually within the first 3 weeks, you'll see a tight end emerge. And a lot of people are not looking at tight end when it comes to those first 3 weeks of the waiver wire. They're just not paying attention. And if you see a guy who's getting, all of a sudden like, hey, he got 7 targets week 1, he got 6 targets week 2. Hey, he's going on my roster one way or another. I'll drop a lottery ticket running back or something like that just to get that tight end on my roster. And then I'll let him sit for a couple weeks. Let's see if he gets, 7 targets again, 6 targets again, he's probably staying on my roster. If he all of a sudden drops down to 2 or 3 targets, hey, it was probably more of a, game situation or game plan type thing where, he was getting too many targets and now he's kind of going back to his normal level. But, it's a situation that you always want to be watching out for. You're looking for, because as Andrew will tell you, you want a top 2 target earner on a team. And, it's kind of easy to recognize when that's happening early in the season. And it usually happens on teams that don't have a lot of good wide receivers. If you got a lot of good wide receivers there and the tight end gets 6-7 targets in a week, I'd probably leave him on the waiver wire. But, if it's on a team where there's not much going on for the wide receivers, hey, I'm probably going to take him.
There you go.
Yeah, I even like going 4 deep, Dan, at the tight end position. I just finished a build for the super flex. If you go to the other positions earlier, go top heavy at receiver maybe, and then hit your running backs through the middle of the draft, I even like grabbing 4 of these guys. I know Joe talks about Chig with a rookie quarterback. We talk about it often on this channel. Rookie quarterbacks love to lean in their tight ends. And, Chig is a guy that's kind of being forgotten right now out there in Tennessee just because we haven't necessarily seen like those top end numbers from him with the quarterback play he's had. But Ward is a guy that could surprise fantasy land this year and produce above expectation. And even if he doesn't, he could easily lean on Chig. And then I know Dan likes this guy, Juwan Johnson out there in New Orleans. The Saints is the other offense that Mason, Spain, and myself talked about on our last stream, underrated offenses. I think the Saints and the Colts are 2 that I like picking up pieces from just at their value.